Well, hello, LinkedIn, X, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Oh, Lordy, it's certainly a Monday, isn't it? My name is Frank Lavinia. You can catch me at the following URLs, franksworld.com, which is turning 30 next week. Can you believe it? Datadriven.tv and impactquantum.com. Speaking of Impact Quantum, we have a new episode out today, and well, let's get to it. Let's get to the topic of the day, the topic du jour, and that is the simple fact that AMD is back in the game. If you've heard me talk about AMD before, I wouldn't say I wrote them off, but I didn't think this would happen, right? I think it's in retrospect, it's kind of obvious it would happen, right? Because what we're seeing is an effective monopoly. That usually doesn't end well for, well, anyone, certainly the consumer. But I think it's an interesting play for OpenAI because the infrastructure here is what really matters. I think we've lived the last 20 years or so where, yeah, the underlying compute, I wouldn't say it didn't matter, but it was really underemphasized. We had ways of getting the most out of our existing chips until we came up with something compute intensive, just like AI, right? And along those lines, you could choose to read this article on LinkedIn, or you can read it on franksworld.com. And I actually wrote this. I wrote this like a month or two ago, actually, and I just was digging through my files, and I was like, I need to write this, particularly in light of today's announcement. And it's basically in Dune. It's all about whoever controls the spice controls the universe. And I think here, whoever controls the infrastructure controls the AI, and that's basically the gist of the article. Yeah, I got to fix that in WordPress. WordPress does not behave for me. I don't know why, but whoever controls it controls that. Now, originally when I wrote this, it was really around the notion of sovereign AI, right? If I own the underlying infrastructure, I have a lot of control over. I have a lot of control over what actually happens in terms of. I have a lot of control over what happens in the to my infrastructure, right? Whereas if I do not, and I kind of, basically offload it to a company like Azure or like Microsoft or AWS, I have zero control over what happens to my data. I have some control, so you're saying no, but if I really wanted 100% absolute undeniable control, I would self-host, right? I would keep things on-prem. And I think that is making a very much a comeback. But the idea that AMD is back in the game, I think is huge. I think NVIDIA does definitely still have a significant jump, mostly because the CUDA ecosystem, right? The ecosystem around the software that these libraries are written in. And it would take somebody like Sam Altman, somebody like OpenAI to get AMD up on the same type of platform or same within competing distance to our friends here at NVIDIA. And if you look here, see, I hate these stupid paywalls, right? Let's go back here. Yeah, Quartz had a story. Very interesting. I think it's very, very telling that infrastructure is now cool again. And I'm very excited about this deal because I think it brings competition back to the GPU market. Certainly won't unseat NVIDIA anytime soon, but at least there's a option here, I would say. So I think it's going to be an interesting turn of events. I would not have. This was not on my bingo card. I thought that if maybe it was me being skeptical, right, grumpy old Frank, right, that if it hasn't happened by now, it's not going to happen, right? But hey, better late than never. And with that, I figured it'd be good to do a live stream because just like that, AMD's back in the game, and they're back in the game in a big way, right? This is not trivial, right? Um, GPT, OpenAI is going to get a 10% stake in AMD. Think about that, right? So it's in their best interest to to make sure their stuff works as well or better on AMD hardware. And I'm excited because the computer I'm talking to you on really has an AMD chip in it, an AMD GPU with an Intel chip. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of innovation this brings. I'm very curious to see uh, what comes of this. But little like I said, AMD's back in the game. Um, I really curious to see how this is going to go in terms of optimization that you would get on CUDA. Could you now do in AMD? Is OpenAI going to write a translation layer? Or are they going to completely redo it? Am I overemphasizing the importance of CUDA? Let me know in the comments. I'm personally very curious about this, honestly. I also think that this opens up some interesting opportunity in terms of, well, what will there be models that'll be optimized for AMD, right? Whatever architecture comes out of this, because there's going to be some kind of new architecture come out of this. Um, and yeah, I'm very curious to see how this goes. So I am fascinated by the turn of events, and yeah, that's all I got. Let me know if you have anything to say in the comments. Let's see if I can. What do we got here in terms of backgrounds? Nope, that didn't work. Oh, that's weird. All right, so with that in mind, I just want to let folks know that yeah, that's good. Good stuff. Good stuff. And I have a lot of notifications coming in. So thank you, everyone. And while I'm here, let's pay the bills. My latest book, which is the Quantum Sales Playbook. You sell outcomes, not qubits. That is released. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I actually checked it out on my Kindle last night, and it reads pretty well, actually, on my Kindle Scribe. So that was the first time I had checked it out on the device, and definitely check it out. Also have Quantum Curious, right? And I think this will answer a lot of questions because I get a lot of questions about Frank, why are you talking about quantum computing so much? This is why. But the too long didn't read, if you don't want to buy the book, is basically Moore's Law. I think we are hitting a crisis here, and the crisis that you have faced with the computing crunch that we have. There are certain types of compute intensive problems that GPUs can solve, CPUs, we've used, GPUs can solve, but I think there's going to be room for a third class of processor. Now, some people call it analog computing, and I don't think these are exactly the same types of things, but the idea that quantum computing would be able to solve what has been under classical computing or computers that we're familiar with has been really unable to solve. And I think it's quantum computers and those types of problems that's going to hopefully solve them, but also not only transform our lives, but also reduce the need for data centers and reduce the need for a lot of the compute power problems that we have. Thank you. I see somebody scan the QR code. That is cool. It's like a little thing here. But yeah, definitely check out the book. That is my first book of 2025. The second book is really kind of if you're in field sales and you're out there and you're trying to figure out, and even though it talks about quantum, the reason why I wrote this is because I was talking to folks on the podcast of impactquantum.com, and a lot of the same problems and conversations I had when I was selling AI Microsoft in 2018 were very much the same things, right? It's very easy for a technologist to get caught into the science of it, the math of it. But if you're talking to a decision maker, somebody in the C-suite, they won't get it. They don't care to get it. They are interested in outcomes, and you have to sell outcomes, right? So whether it's robotics, right? I'm selling robotics for an assembly line, right? I'm not selling the cool gadgetry and computer vision models that might be built into that. I am selling better output, more reliable, more consistent, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to think in terms of framing the problem or the solution in terms of business use cases, not necessarily in the cool gadgetry. And it's easy for someone like me and someone who's a technologist to get lost in the gadgetry and the terms and all that stuff. Very easy for us. So that's it. Speaking of gadgets, here's another bill to pay. I love this thing, man. I use this. It's a 100-watt portable solar panel. It folds down into about the size of a laptop. My kid borrowed it for when he goes biking, but it basically fits into this. I don't have my MacBook here, but it's basically my MacBook would fit in this. Even the bigger one, well, the bigger one may not fit, but certainly the MacBook Air would fit in this. And the solar panel collapses in that. You put it in your backpack, and you can sit outside in a cafe and not worry about electricity. And but yeah, so let me know in the comments. I see I have a comment. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, Frank's World's turning 30 next week. And it's quite a celebration. And I'll have more to say about that later. And with that, I have to end the stream because I'm getting a phone call. And I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.